How can one create an RPG campaign where the players are on track and they're progressing through the story? The short answer is, that's very, very difficult to do. The long answer is, there is a method. Now, despite the character alignment in which players play their characters, players are balls of chaotic energy. They're unpredictable, they're wild, and they're gonna do what they want. They're like a mule, they're stubborn in that way.
I cast Fireball!
And DMs, GMs, referees, whatever, generally want to try to tell their own story, so to speak. The players are gonna do what they want anyway. And they might play to your story for a little bit, and that's cool. But eventually they're gonna get sidetracked, and the whole campaign will go off the rails, and will crash messily into a ravine, and then be attacked by a bunch of bandits, and then be set ablaze by someone losing a match, and oh dear, it's a whole mess at that point. So how do we prevent this? Running a sandbox game. A sandbox game is a game in which the players are basically given absolute freedom to go where they wish and do what they wish. And this is how I've run my game for years, and I've been very successful in doing so. The key is, I have a plot, but it's in the background. And it's not that important, unless the players choose to make it so. In a sandbox game, the players make their own story, their own adventure. It's like what's done at the table normally, a shared story between everyone, but in this, the players are the main driving force behind the plot, while the referee is there just to facilitate what they're doing. This can be intimidating, right? Because an open world game, that's a lot to prepare. That's really spooky. And I'm here to tell you, I have a method. I have a method to this madness, and it's not too difficult. Don't you worry. I'm gonna walk you through the basic steps to make a good sandbox campaign setting that is not too difficult for a starting DM or a seasoned DM or really anyone to run. Sandbox games play into one strength almost all GMs, DMs, referees. One strength we all have. We like to prepare things. We like to write things down. We tend to over-prep for each session. And that's a good thing. The key to running a sandbox game is preparation. And once again, this can seem overwhelming, but it can be pretty easy too. Let's start with how to make the world itself, the play area, the sandbox that contains the players. Start off by making a starter town. Something small, something with not a lot of people. Maybe a population of only, dare I say, 70 to 100. Make a minor town noble. Have a little church there and a general store. Come up with probably 2 to 3 major NPCs, so that noble, the priest of the church, so on, who have a fair bit of personality. They have a long, maybe paragraphs worth of backstory, and you know what they want and what they don't like, and those sorts of minor things. And then from there, have a bunch of the minor NPCs, maybe 6 of them. So like, the trader's name is Johann Joskovich, and he talks in a funny accent. He's there, we know who he is. For the major NPCs to also give them an actual stat line. For all the minor ones, just make a general one where you can go, all right, we'll give him an extra bit of charisma here if he's the trader. Just something basic you can pull out and use if the need arises. A skeleton stat block, so to speak. Once you have this little town made, the basics of it, start looking out. I use a hex map. I think that's generally the best way to do it. You can buy a bunch of hex grids for like chemistry classes on Amazon or eBay or wherever else you like to shop, Walmart, for super cheap. So grab one of those, cut out a bit of hex paper, and begin detailing in a master map. Make some biomes, divide up the areas. Put down a few dungeons. They only have to be names at this point. And, I don't know, maybe some other interesting areas, like maybe there's a fissure in the earth here, or another small town there, or maybe there's a city up here. Then decide how long it takes to travel each hex. I generally go with it. Maybe you could get 3 hexes in a day, give or take, and then you could travel 6 hexes with a horse if anyone dares to buy one and, pay the upkeep on one. All right, once you have these names down, and these can change too, jot down 1 to 3 bullet points for each biome, a city, or a dungeon, right? For each one 1 to 3 bullet points, so you get the general gist of each. So, the salt marsh for the biome. Well, we know there's swamp apes there. If people spend an extended amount of time in the water, their weapons will rust, and it's very humid. Maybe they can contract diseases there. Nice and easy. And then for a dungeon, let's call it Hydrangea. All right, so it's in the salt marsh, we know that. It is made of twisting roots. The monsters in it regenerate every time the players exit and enter, and it's a maze. Boom. And then a town, let's say Waldenheim. The mayor of Waldenheim doesn't like the mayor of Blackroot. The town worships Axis, the goddess of humanity. And currently people are leaving due to a famine. Nice and simple things. The key is, if you don't have any of these places prepared, which we'll get to preparation in a second, you can use these bullet points to create a framework, take notes of what happens. This is going to be a lot of spontaneous GM magic you'll need. But these are great outlines that'll help you. And they'll kindle inspiration for other areas. Next, and this is important, designate a dungeon near the starting town to be the starter dungeon. Let's take Naganoff, the one I have near Port Davin for one of my games right now. I designated it the starter dungeon, and I generated 2 levels of that dungeon. Using my bullet points, I know roughly what's going to happen as they go down into it. And then from there, actually start the players at the dungeon. Don't force them to do horrific roleplay in the tavern or in the town. Just start them all off there. They will all bond through combat, and they'll generally get the sense without you telling them, like, oh, let's just go back to Naganoff to keep killing monsters and getting loot to level up. Let's just keep heading back there, because it's close to town, and we already have a foothold in there. Great. Now for the starter dungeon, like I said, you're going to generate more than most. 1 to 2 levels, perhaps 3 if you're feeling a little adventurous. And then you start looking at the dungeons that are close to them, and the other key areas that are close to them, right? So whether that's other dungeons, key landmarks, other towns, whatever. And then you generate basic stats for the key areas. So if it's like, I don't know, the steaming fissure, where's that steam coming from? Why did that hole open in the ground? What will they see when they initially get there? That's the key. Same for the town. But for the dungeons, generate 1 to 2 levels for each of them. If you're pressed for time, just generate 1. Here's where this all comes together, right? With all of this little lore bits of information, the people in the starting town can give them rumors, true or false, about the locations on your hex map, because you have these little key features down already. So that'll encourage them to explore out if they're not feeling satisfied with their current exploration area. Along with that too, every time they press close to a dungeon that you don't have completed yet, at the end of the session, be sure to start generating a level for that. If they actually travel there and get in, I have some advice at the end of this video for how to deal with that. Anyway, every time they complete a level in a dungeon, generate another level. So in the starting dungeon in Naganoff, once they complete level 1, generate level 3, because you already have level 2 complete. And do that over and over again until they complete the dungeon, until you're satisfied. I always know how many levels I want the dungeon to be, so I always stop, when it's done. Once you have all this basic stuff done, a map, locations, 1 to 2 levels for all the dungeons that are close to the starting town, create a player version of the hex map and give it to them to fill out. You can also add interesting spots to that map, maybe like an X marks a spot or a little bit of writing on it. Something where they're like, ooh, we should go that direction. That's interesting. It's a DM sin and a DM blessing. We love to prep. We like to make things. So make things. Do you have an idea for a trap, a monster, or a dungeon or location? Modify the contents of your key map and the areas within, and just add them to it. Oh, this trap would go great, and oh, this dungeon I made here. Great, I'll quickly generate a level of that dungeon, place it in. Or I'll replace a trap that's kind of lame on that level with this cool one. Or a monster, or an NPC, or whatever else. As the players do things, your map will probably change. All your key documents will probably change, and that's okay. They haven't got there yet. That's cool. That's all part of this, making the game better. And what you don't use can be recycled for future games or future areas they get to too, which is cool. And speaking of that, I have 1 to 2 levels of a dungeon that don't belong to any set dungeon, right? Dungeon maps that have some traps in them and no monsters. So on the fly, if the players go somewhere where I'm not ready, I can just pull out one of those maps and later add it to that location's, like this is the first level of this dungeon, and I can quickly make up an encounter table, say, okay guys, can I have like 5 minutes to get a quick snack break, quickly fill in the encounter table, quickly just jot down some monsters. I already have treasure in there, I already have traps, and then I'm good to go. Along with that too, I know when I can't sleep, I make dungeon levels, and sometimes I'll fill them out if I'm not feeling too groggy. If you have free time, make a map. It's not too difficult. It can be super quick, super easy. They even have websites where you can generate dungeon levels, which are excellent. I use them quite a lot because pretty quick and easy. Although there's nothing that can be a handmade SAM or U map. So always keep that in mind. In general, I work really far ahead. Once again, this is just a simple way for you to begin a sandbox game if you've never played one. I find that being the best lazy GM I can be is prep work. Between Jim Murphy and the Lazy DM, I've taken my style. Shoutouts to both of them. I love both of them. I have so much prep work done. I've taken maybe a weekend several months ago and done a ton of work. A Sam's busy. I have to make these videos. I have fish to deal with. I have miniatures to paint. I have friends to hang out with. And I suppose I also have school to, do whatever with. Screw that. So I haven't had to do really any work on the pen and paper side for D&D for a long time because of that. Prep work is important. Prep work is easy. And prep work is fun. It's fun to make lore. It's fun to make dungeons. It's good stuff. And that's what you do. When you have time, you make this and add it to it. And suddenly, you have to prepare a lot less and you're set. Because a dungeon can last you sessions upon sessions. One good dungeon the players will be exploring for a while. And if each dungeon has its own unique little gimmick and spin on things, or even if they're just normal every once in a while sprinkled in, the players won't get too bored. Balance it out with, role-playing a lot in towns, and it's a great system. I've found great success with it. I hope you all will too, because I want there to be more good, more great, more passionate GMs, DMs, referees out there that are confident to take on the hobby, that are confident to take on their players, that are confident to run games for people. Because Dungeons & Dragons is awesome. I love D&D. It is great. And I want more people to play it. I really do. So I hope you've learned a lot. I hope you'll implement some of this. Thank you for sitting through my rant. Oh, and before I go today, I now have a Discord. It is just currently me and a couple of buddies. It's pretty edgy right now, so if you're into that, you'll have a grand old time in there. If not, I don't blame you for not hopping in. But if you want to chit-chat with me for a little bit, or show off a cool mini you've painted, or a dungeon floor that I can steal and use in my own game, or if you want to see some of my dungeon floors you can see to steal in your game, consider, hopping in. The more people we have, the more fun it will be. With that plug out of the way now, I've been Sideshow Sam. This has been my video, and I hope to see you all in the next one.